Deal over Greece and Janet Yellen's testimony gives us a lot to talk about with Kathy Boyle from Chaplin Hill Advisors. Welcome, Kathy, as always.
Great to be here.
All right, so let's talk about Greece first. Are you surprised that they got this 4-month extension?
I'm not. They're just kicking that can down the road.
Yeah, they don't really want to deal with this now.
No, they really don't. They can't afford to. Everybody's afraid that something like this, we call it Grexit. If Greek exits the euro, the whole thing's going to fall apart. There's a ton of debt. There's a ton of covenants that just are not going to, they're going to be broken. There's going to be debt that's not going to be paid. There's no way.
And if Greece goes, Spain and Portugal are going to say, well, what about us? Why are we engaged in all of this austerity?
Spain, Portugal, and Italy. Remember the famous pigs.
That's right.
Right? So Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece have similar economies to many, for a large portion. They really rely on tourism.
And Germany feels like it's tired of supporting what they call the southern part of Europe.
Yes, and that's the tug of war that you have, because Germany exports a huge percentage of its GDP to the southern nations. The southern nations don't have the capacity to do the industrial production that Germany has, nor are they anywhere close to as efficient, and Germany relies on that. But at the same time, they're exporting to these countries that can't afford to absorb all the goods, yet they need them to buy all their goods.
It's a little bit of mercantilism, isn't it?
It really is. It's more complicated than most people realize.
And on that point, does Germany have a separate agenda here in keeping the euro at a certain level?
A very large percentage of Germany's GDP is export. They export a huge amount, not just to the euro nations, but also to China and other Asian countries. So they need the euro to stay high because they want their goods to be less expensive in the other countries.
And I take it Greece knows this, and the new finance ministers know this, and maybe do you think that they are going to play a successful game of chicken with Germany?
I don't think so. I think that the new government is just worried. Greece has record suicide levels. Youth unemployment is 56%. You've got, just huge amounts of poverty and this huge debt burden. And they're not going to change a country overnight. In 4 months,
a lot of this is culture.
Absolutely.
A lot of this is pensions that are guaranteed. There's apparently a proposal for a lifetime payroll, I think, for some people.
There's all kinds of socialist, propaganda, policies that go on in a lot of these countries. And, they're suffering. Even Germany is suffering. Germany has a record increase in poverty. You haven't seen this since the 1990 when the reunification happened. So last year it went from 15 to 15.5% of their population. 12.5 million people are now in record levels of poverty.
So what's the exit strategy, the Grexit strategy, if you will, for this situation? Does the debt eventually get forgiven?
Well, it's a huge burden on how, somebody has to pay the piper somewhere. You can only keep rates down for so long, all right? So I think for Greece to really produce, they need to lower their currency so they can stimulate imports and stimulate tourism. Basically, if you and your family are going to take a vacation and the drachma is really cheap, where would you go?
And so they may be forced into that.
That may be their salvation.
Okay. Let me ask you about the U.S. Fed and Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen said today that interest rates probably will not go up for the next, quote, several FOMC meetings. What she's talking about. Right.
Well, last week, some Fed governor came out and said, that things are a little weaker than they thought, so they may keep the zero tolerance policy a little bit longer. So it's starting to make more noise about, Wall Street had something like a 60 or 70% bet that rates were going to go up in June, and then by the time you got to September, it was closer to 80%, right. 90%. So now all bets are moving off, so now everybody thinks rates are going to stay low for a while.
But they keep coming back to the idea of wage inflation increasing people's paychecks, and there was something out today, basically the Walmart effect. Walmart says they're going to raise people's wages, and some are saying that's the tipping point when you can tell that the economy is supporting higher wages.
Well, we'll have to see, because Walmart might just be forced into this position, because they're much worse than Costco. If you compare Costco and Walmart, which everybody's been doing, Costco is run much more efficiently. They pay more fair wages. They have better benefits. I've actually heard Costco employees say great place to work because Sunday they get overtime.
So basically, you can't say this is a barometer on whether wages are actually
I mean, I talked to a friend of mine the other day who runs a local business up by us, and she said, my employees are one flat tire away from oblivion, and that's where a lot of Americans are.
Okay, Kathy Boyle, as always, thank you so much for coming in.
Great to be here.
Talk to you soon. Coming up, the bankers of the terrorists and why a lawsuit may blow open the hidden details. You're watching Arise Xchange.